Good Wednesday, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for September the 28th. Today we're reading together from Revelation chapter 15, which introduces us into the next cycle, the next thread within the revelation that is revealed to John by God and by Jesus, by the Spirit, which will contain the bowls that are being poured out that represent various plagues. We're going to read about that here together in Revelation chapter 15. Going to get that text up on the screen for us today. As we are looking at this particular chapter, just to remind ourselves again that this is an apocalypse. It is apocalyptic literature, which apocalyptic literature is full of symbolic language that would have been very familiar, to the Jewish audience that was receiving this at the time in the first century. It was a type of literature that they themselves wrote in during the time of silence prior to the introduction of Jesus in the first century. So this is something, that whenever they read it, they would have had a much easier time comprehending and understanding than we do some 2,000 years later. And that does not mean, though, that this is an unuseful text for us. It is a very useful text because the same principles of truth that would have encouraged them during their day remain for us as we live in our own version of Babylon today. We are very fortunate to not be in the time of persecution that they found themselves in the first century. Yet that does not mean that life is necessarily easy for us. There are various things that we are combating on a daily basis, but we're thankful to God for the relative peace and safety that we have. Yet we need to make sure that we're using that to our advantage to shine a light for Jesus and to speak about things that are true and good, speak about things that people need to hear. About this text as well, it is a prophecy, so it's about God's perspective of the goings on of earth, that he knows exactly what the reality is, and he's sharing that with John through Jesus. And then finally, that this is a letter written to specific people at a specific time for a specific purpose. So we need to make sure that our understanding of the text, first and foremost, aligns with their understanding of the text, that we're not reading this text through through 21st century Western eyes, because we can tend to get ourselves in a lot of trouble whenever we do that. And remember as well, I'll add one other thing in. We need to remember the reality that John uses so much Old Testament language here that will so much Old Testament language that, again, if we go back and examine what exactly is going on in those Old Testament texts, then that is really where we get a lot of the principles that we can learn from here. And that, I think, that really stands as being true here within this text, is we're going to see that this particular text takes us back to the Exodus, and that's really what it's drawing our minds back to. So what was true about the Exodus, John wants the people to recognize as being true about their own situation. So that's what we'll see here as we read this short chapter of 15 here in the Revelation. So let's read together Revelation chapter 15, verse number 1. Then I saw another great and awe-inspiring sign in heaven, 7 angels with the 7 last plagues, for with them God's wrath will be completed. I also saw something like a sea of glass mixed with fire, and those who had won the victory over the beast, its image, and the number of its name were standing on the sea of glass with harps from God. They sang the song of God's servant Moses and the song of the Lamb. Great and awe-inspiring are your works, Lord God the Almighty. Just and true are your ways, King of the nations. Lord, who will not fear and glorify your name? For you alone are holy. All the nations will come and worship before you because your righteous acts have been completed. After this, I looked, and the heavenly temple, the tabernacle of testimony, was opened. Out of the temple came 7 angels with the 7 plagues, dressed in pure bright linen, with golden sashes wrapped around their chests. One of the 4 living creatures gave the 7 angels 7 golden bowls filled with the wrath of God, who lives forever and ever. Then the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power, and no one could enter the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were completed. and that is Revelation chapter 15. And you probably caught it right off the bat there. There are 7 plagues that immediately should take us to be thinking about the Exodus. And lest we think that's the only thing within this text makes us think about the Exodus, let's also think about the song of God's servant Moses. Well, when did they sing that? Well, they sang that once they had crossed over the Red Sea. Once God had caused the sea to be parted, and they were able to walk on dry land and to pass that. I think it's Exodus 15, if I remember correctly. Let me go double check that. I believe Exodus 15 is the song of Moses. Yeah, Israel's song. The song of Moses in Exodus 15 speaks about the faithfulness of God, his power, his might to be able to overcome Egypt and to show his power and to show his care for his people. So here they're saying that this song is being sung, but not just of Moses, but also of the Lamb, of Jesus the Christ. And notice the words of the song. They are great and awe-inspiring are your works. Just and true are your ways, King of the nations. Lord, who will not fear and glorify your name? For you alone are holy. All the nations will come and worship before you because your righteous acts have been revealed. So all this is painting the picture for us that these plagues that are about to take place are going to show God's works. They're going to show his ways. They're going to show his power. They're going to show his ability to even command the nations and to have victory over the nations. Of course, the nations are representative of everything that is against God. So as we think about Babylon and what the particular characters they're going to be introduced here in a little bit in chapter 17, we're going to have the woman, the beast are going to introduce themselves, the harlot, the great Babylon are all mentioned here. And again, all of those are monikers for those things that are against God, whether they be just general evil or maybe tied directly into what the Satan is at work and doing through a nation such as Babylon, but not Babylon. Remember, it's not Babylon. It would be Rome or anybody else that stands against God, dating all the way back to the Tower of Babel itself. The idea here is that God has power over them, and God is not going to be defeated by them. So as the people of God see these plagues being poured out, they see these bowls being emptied out, they can have assurance that God is taking care of them and that they will arrive on the other side. In fact, they kind of are on the other side already, that they're safe now and they will be safe then, and they can sing the song of Moses and the Lamb. So what are the bowls that we're going to see poured out in the next chapter, chapter 16? We're going to see painful sores. We're going to see this. We're going to see the sea turn to blood. The river is going to turn to blood. There's going to be an intense burning sun. There's going to be darkness, water dried up, and frogs. There's going to be earthquake and great hail again. All of this leads us to think about the Exodus. And what was true about the Exodus? God would not be stopped. He would overcome his enemies. He would deliver his people. And that would be the end of it, that God would deliver his people. He would overcome his enemies. And that's what he wants the people here who are receiving this revelation from John, which originally is from God and from Jesus, that they can withstand it, that they can overcome it, that they can have the victory in the end. So as we continue to read through, and as we march toward the end of the revelation, just continue to keep that in mind. Let's see, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20. So we have 7 more days. So we'll end, I guess that means next Wednesday, we will be in Revelation 22. So for these next 7 days, there's going to be a lot of very terrifying imagery that is detailed here in the Revelation. Again, remember, though, it is an apocalypse. It is apocalyptic literature. So it's very symbolic in nature. I don't believe there's actually going to be a legitimate dragon. I don't believe there's actually going to be these other things that are described here. I don't think that's going to be the reality, or that I don't believe that has been the reality. I don't believe this is going to be the reality. I think so much of what is happening in the Revelation, for the most part, is past in nature. It's past in nature, in some senses. It has a very much now but not yet type of feel. It happened in the first century in various ways, delivering the people, but there's still some yet to be determined. But I don't think that this is detailing some futuristic map of events that's going to take place. I don't think that is the most responsible way in order to view the revelation, especially if we're taking things in a very literal sense. I don't believe that that's, again, the most responsible way to read this text and to comprehend this text. So with that in mind, as we were reading through these things over the next few chapters, and things are very intense, as the imagery is very vivid, it's very dramatic, just keep in mind that God wins. He will be with his people. And in the end, if they will remain true and faithful to him, they will prevail along with him. So that's what we want to keep in mind as we continue reading through the Revelation over the next 7 days. And once we get on the 7 days, guess what? We will have read throughout the entirety of the New Testament this year. What a cool feeling that is. If you've never done that before, well, now in 7 days, if you've been with us all along the way, you can say you have done just that. But we'll get back at it tomorrow as we read together from Revelation chapter 16. Hope you will tune back in for that. We're looking forward to being with everybody tonight for our midweek assembly. As we come together to study again from God's word, we'll be continuing looking at the structures of leadership within the New Testament church. In our adult class, we'll have our younger classes in the back. And so if you would like to come study with us, please know that you have a place among us tonight at 7 p.m. at 706 Ward Avenue here in Loudon. Also want to make mention of, remember Dave Overall, Sarah's friend who attends with her. He's having some real struggles right now. He's in the hospital, having some real bad issues with his feet. He's in surgery to see exactly what needs to be done, and there might be surgeries in the future. So please be praying for him and hope that the best turnout will take place with him. Continue to remember others of our church family that we love and care about, the Popes and the Hoovers, and there's many other things to be praying about. Please check the prayer request board at the building while you're there, or you can scroll back down if you're on our Facebook page. Try to post those here on the Facebook page, so you can scroll down and find those as well. But thanks again for tuning in, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. God bless.